Welcome to Trial of the Hollywood Sex Therapist Killer, the harrowing and tragic story of Dr. Amie Harwick, who met a tragic end when she was allegedly thrown off her third-floor balcony by her stalker and ex-boyfriend, Gareth Pursehouse. Found clinging to life, but later succumbing to her injuries, Amie's death has raised many questions, with answers to be revealed in court. Join us as we dive deep into the ongoing trial of Gareth Pursehouse, the man accused of this heinous act, and as we seek justice for Amie.
She said something to the effect of.
Okay, well, she said yes, but was it something to the effect of those words?
Yes.
Okay.
Detective Carranza and Masterson interviewed you on the 28th of October in 2021. Do you remember that?
I don't recall the exact date. I was interviewed, yes.
Okay. And that was a recorded interview?
Yes.
In that interview, detectives asked you, what was the first thing you heard Mr. Pursehouse say? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you responded that you heard him say, "Funny seeing you here." Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Jansen. This morning on direct, you testified that you heard Mr. Pursehouse say, "You fucking ruined my life," to Ms. Harwick.
Yes.
She said something to the effect of.
Okay, well, she said yes, but was it something to the effect of those words?
Yes.
Okay.
Detective Carranza and Masterson interviewed you on the 28th of October in 2021. Do you remember that?
I don't recall the exact date. I was interviewed, yes.
Okay. And that was a recorded interview?
Yes.
In that interview, detectives asked you, what was the first thing you heard Mr. Pursehouse say? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you responded that you heard him say, "Funny seeing you here."
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned to the detectives that you and one of the detectives had a phone call prior to that interview. Do you remember that?
They called me to set up an interview.
Well, in the interview, you specifically referenced this phone call that you had with a detective. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you brought it up and you told the detectives that in that phone call, the detective had asked you about hearing this specific phrase, "ruining his life," or something like that.
Yes.
And so in this phone call, the detectives told you, "Hey, Mr. Pursehouse said this phrase, do you remember hearing it?"
Yes.
And you specifically told the detectives in your interview that you did not remember those exact words. Is that correct?
Yes.
It was the detective who told you in the phone call that Mr. Pursehouse had said, "You ruined my life."
Objection to state's testimony.
That's cross-examination. Is it correct
That the detective is the one that made that statement to you over the phone?
I believe so.
And you specifically told them in the interview that you hadn't heard those exact words, but that you had heard something along the lines of jealousy, that he was expressing jealousy. Do you remember that?
Yes.
That he was there shooting an adult film event, and he was upset that she was there, right?
Yes.
Because previously she had a problem with that industry.
It seemed like it.
And so now she's here, and so that was the reason that he was explaining to Ms. Harwick why he was upset.
Objection calling for speculation.
Sustained.
You don't have to.
Did you hear him make specific statements to the effect of, "Why are you here if you had such a problem with it?"
Something on the lines.
On direct, you testified that Ms. Harwick tried to walk away and Mr. Pursehouse followed.
Yes.
And when you spoke to the detectives in the interview, in the recorded interview, isn't it true that you were not actually sure about that point? Whether he followed her?
I definitely knew that he followed her.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at the transcript of your interview?
Objection, she doesn't need her memory refreshed. Answer your question.
Yeah, she said she stated that you do remember that. Is that correct?
I remember her leaving and him following, and them going near the bathroom.
Looking at page 10, line 26 of the transcript, isn't it true that you said, and I quote, "I think they just, well, she walked away, and I think he followed. I'm not sure."
Objection is statement proper impeachment.
No. Well, overruled.
Isn't it true that that is what you told the detectives during your interview on the 28th of October 2021?
I definitely saw them walk away, and they went near the bathroom.
Objection, non-responsive.
Overruled. That's her answer.
The question is, did you say to the detectives during your interview that she walked away and I think he followed, I'm not sure?
Objection, he just asked the same question.
Well, correct, and she's answered it.
Well,
That's the way she answered it. Are you disagreeing that you make that statement to the officers?
I'm sorry?
Do you disagree with what he just stated? Did you make that statement to the detectives that interviewed you? Repeat the statement.
and then I think they just, well, she walked away and I think he followed. I'm not sure.
I know for sure that he followed her.
Okay, so that's not inconsistent. You followed her.
The question relates to her statement to the detectives.
Right. So did you make that statement to the detectives? That you followed her?
I thought I did.
Okay.
And my question only relates to not what your memory is today, but what you told the detectives when you were interviewed back in 2021.
But that is her memory today.
That's what she recalls telling you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure I understand the timeline. You are with Mr. Chavez and Ms. Harwick online to get to the red carpet, right?
In line, yes.
Oh, thank you. And the specific reason that the line exists is to take pictures on the red carpet, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Chavez leaves to get drinks, right?
Yes.
And how much time passes between Mr. Chavez leaving and Mr. Pursehouse approaching?
Within 3 minutes or so.
And then there's the 2 to 3 minute interaction between Mr. Pursehouse and Ms. Harwick.
Something like that. Me and her were just having very, very small talk. I just met her.
I
And he
mean,
came
once
up.
Mr. Pursehouse arrives, then the interaction between the two of them before they leave the line is about 2 to 3 minutes.
Very, very fast. A couple minutes.
Couple of minutes. And you hear some of the things that were said, but not everything.
Correct.
You were looking at your phone.
I was just in line. I wasn't necessarily looking at my phone. The only time I really looked at my phone was when I was trying to contact Hernando.
When Mr. Chavez does walk back up to the line, Ms. Harwick and Mr. Pursehouse weren't there anymore, right?
Correct.
They'd already left.
Yes.
And so the part of the conversation and the phrase that you have testified to that you heard, Mr. Chavez was not there when you heard that phrase.
He was not there when he heard the phrase.
You told Mr. Chavez the general area they had gone,
Yes.
and he stayed with you in line.
I already finished the red carpet, so I no longer needed to be in line. I was just standing there with her to keep her company while he went to go get us drinks.
Right, but I'm asking, when Mr. Chavez comes back and you tell him where Ms. Harwick and Mr. Pursehouse went, then Mr. Chavez stayed with you? And
No.
No. Specifically, when Mr. Chavez returned from the bar, you didn't like run over towards him as he was coming to you, did you?
No.
At some point, well after the XBiz award event, Mr. Chavez contacted you and informed you that Ms. Harwick had passed away.
Yes.
And he told you that you should contact the police.
He asked if I could.
He said it was important that you tell them what you heard.
Yes.
And you did contact the detectives.
Yes.
And you had that phone call that we talked about before.
Yes.
And in that phone call, the detectives asked you what you remembered and what you heard about what happened in the event.
I told them the gist of it.
The detectives told you that there was this phrase at issue, whether he said, "You ruined my life, bitch."
Sustained. Let's not go over that issue again, counsel. Let's move on.
To your knowledge, that phone call was not recorded.
To my knowledge, I don't remember.
Prior to your testimony today, the prosecution sent you, or the detective sent you, a transcript of your interview from 2021.
Yes.
And you recently spoke to DA, the district attorneys, about this case, right?
Yes.
And you spoke to them about what you remembered from that night.
Yes.
When was this conversation?
Today? Is that what you're asking?
No, prior to today's testimony. Did you have a conversation with Mr. Avila or Ms. Mariano or any of the detectives about your recollections and, what happened that night?
I just remember asking them, or they basically asked me to come to trial, but I don't remember really talking about everything except for when they initially recorded everything.
Nothing further.
Read right.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Jameson, you were asked several questions by Mr. Franzel about this phone call you had with detectives prior to coming in for an interview. So just to be clear, you physically went to a police station and gave an interview, is that correct?
Yes, they came to Henderson, Nevada, where I was residing at the time, and I met with them at the local police station in Henderson.
But prior to physically meeting with law enforcement, you actually had a phone call with a detective, is that correct?
I think so.
Or somebody from a member of law enforcement?
Yes, to schedule up the interview.
And was that an interview or some sort of logistical phone call?
Logistics.
Was that to set up this meeting in Henderson to take a statement from you?
Yes, because I believe they were all in Los Angeles, and I told them that I was living in Henderson, so they said they would come up to me.
Would it be fair to say that your recollection of the night and what you told detectives is captured in your interview at the police station in Nevada?
Yes.
And prior to today, you had an opportunity to actually listen and watch that interview. Is that correct?
I listened to it. I didn't watch it.
I'm sorry. You actually listened to it, the
I
audio.
listened to it. Correct.
Now, when Mr. Franzel, that's defense counsel over here, asked you some questions, he asked you about this statement that you heard the defendant say something to the effect of, "You ruined my life." You recall that?
Yes.
We talked about it on direct examination as well.
Yes.
Now, I think the gist of the question, and you appeared confused, so I'm going to ask you again.
Speculation.
Well, all right. That part would be stricken. You go ahead and ask her again.
Did you appear? Were you confused by Mr. Franzel's question when he asked you that?
Yes.
Okay. So, as a point of clarity, you appeared confused by Mr. Franzel's question, so let me ask you in a different way. Was that statement fed to you by detectives?
No.
Do you independently recollect hearing the defendant say something to the effect of, "You ruined my life"?
Yes.
Thank you, nothing further.
The phone call with the detective or law enforcement member that occurred prior to your interview in Henderson, it's your testimony today that that phone call was purely logistical,
Yes.
and that there were no questions about what happened at the XBiz Awards.
No.
Okay, I have in my hand what I'd like to mark as an MC. It's a CD, which is an excerpt of the interview with Ms. Jameson. I'm showing counsel transcript.
I have the same objection as. If I may read the transcript for one moment.
Yes. Is this going to her statement regarding what she characterized as logistical
Yes,
conversation?
definitely.
And may we approach?
All right. All right, Counsel.
Thank you. Prior to that little break we just took, you had just testified that the conversation you had with the detective before the interview was purely logistical.
Yes.
What do you mean by logistical?
Setting up where we're gonna meet, because I was in Henderson, they were in LA, and basically they were coming to Henderson, and they asked me to meet them at the local Henderson police station that was near my house.
Okay, and you didn't speak during that initial call. You didn't speak about the case at all, other than just setting up the meeting.
I honestly don't recall.
Okay. Now she says she does not recall, Counsel. Why don't you approach, refresh her memory at this point? She says she doesn't recall. So that's different now.
Okay.
Do you have a transcript?
I have the actual interview that I'd like to play for her with headphones on.
Well, show her the transcript
I will.
first. Yeah, show her the transcript.
Now she's saying she doesn't remember.
And I'm going to refresh her recollection. Would it refresh your recollection to listen to the interview?
I can.
You can do it either way.
I can read it.
Right. Oh, she said she can read
Said
it.
she could read it.
All right.
Okay, Your Honor, may I please cross-examine this witness?
You are.
I know the prosecution's playing an ample role here.
Wow. All right.
would it refresh-
He's free to recollect, have a witness's recollection refreshed by any means. And if you're going to play that excerpt, then go ahead.
All right.
Give her the transcript to follow along, if you would.
If I may just have a brief moment.
Yes.
Our next witness is Rebecca Jollock.
Okay.
May I place this here? Sorry. Let me get one more thing. Did that refresh your recollection?
A little bit, but it was honestly a long time ago, so I don't really remember too much.
You still don't remember too much, you said?
I don't really remember that initial phone call.
Okay.
Having just listened to your own statements to the detectives about that phone call, doesn't refresh your recollection about what was said in that phone call?
It was
Because the entire
Hold
phone call?
on. Well, based on what he played to her.
Based on what I played.
But it's just what he played to her.
that what you played. That was me in Henderson talking. That wasn't the initial phone call, so I don't
Right.
really remember the phone call.
So that was not the initial phone call you received?
No, that what he played for me, that's me in Henderson at the police department.
Okay.
Okay, so when you were being interviewed by the detectives, you told the detectives, hey, that phone call that we had, in that phone call you asked me if He said, "You ruined my life, bitch."
Objection asking.
Well, no,
This is the fifth time that Mr. Frenzel
I understand. He's setting a foundation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is what counsel stated correct? Repeat it if you would.
In the October interview with the detectives in Henderson, you told them, "Hey, when you called me and we had a phone call, you asked me, did Mr. Pursehouse say you ruined my life, bitch?" Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you told the detectives that you don't remember those exact words.
It was something on the lines of, "You ruined my life, bitch." It might have not been those exact words, but he was just mad at her because he was basically calling her a hypocrite why she was there when he didn't really accept that, or when she didn't really accept
So you're saying
that.
something along the lines of, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And all I'm asking about is what you said in that interview to the detectives.
Right, but she says she can't recall. It was something along the lines of what you stated.
I know, but
Your Honor, Mr. Frenzel is
That-
asking the same question.
I understand.
And he's getting the same answer.
Yes,
And just
and-
because he doesn't like the answer. doesn't
Counsel,
mean
no
he gets
speaking
to
objections. No, I don't want to hear any editorial with respect to that. Okay, that's it. She stated something along the lines of what you stated to her, and it remains, and the record remains as such. All right?
thank you. Nothing further.
Anything?
Do you, as you sit here today and testify, independently recall the defendant saying something along those lines of "you ruined my life" to Amie Harwick at the XBiz Awards?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything based on that question?
No.
Okay, ma'am, you may step down. Thank you very much.
Can she be subject to recall?
Yes, make it available, if you would.
Well, she's out of state.
Yes, it's up to.
Okay, so if you, yeah, if you want.
We could make it available, but they would have to they have to take care of the logistics.
That's fine.
Okay, fine. Make her available, and they'll take care of the logistics if they need it. All right, next witness, if you would.
The people call Miss Jalad, Rebecca Jalad.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, if you could raise your right hand, face this gentleman here.
You solemnly state that the testimony you're about to give and the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and help you God. Thank you. Please have a seat.
Ms. Shalad, as I've advised other witnesses, if you would lean into the microphone when you speak so to make sure that all the jurors can hear you, okay?
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Please state and spell both your first and last name.
Rebecca Jalad, REVECKA, JALLAD.
Ms. Mariano.
Thank you, Your Honor. How do you know Amie Harwick?
We became close friends through working together, modeling, photo shoots, things like that.
When would you say, approximately, you don't need to give me an exact date, of when you guys met?
Wow. Sorry. I would say 2008. Yeah.
And you've known each other ever since, I assume?
Yes.
Would you say that since knowing each other since 2008, quite a long time, that you were good friends?
Yes.
Well, she said the witness herself said she was, the word she used, the characterization was close friends. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you keep in touch?
Yes.
How often would you say you kept in touch with Amie throughout your friendship?
Every few months. We didn't talk for a few years. And then we had rekindled our friendship. And then, once that happened, typically we'd be in contact every few months or so.
What about in the months leading up to her death? How often would you say you spoke during that time?
I would say once every few weeks. We became a lot closer.
Now, in the time that you've known Amie, have you ever seen her smoke any tobacco products?
No, never.
Any sort of nicotine products?
No.
Did you ever see her ingest nicotine in any form?
No.
Prior to her death, when was the last time you saw her?
It was February 14th. We went to an event together.
And is that Valentine's Day?
Yes.
What did you do that day on Valentine's Day?
We went to a burlesque show.
And you're referencing we. Who are you talking about, we?
Myself, Amie, and our friend Sarah.
And where was this burlesque show located?
At the Globe Theater in downtown LA.
And was that on 7th and Broadway?
Yes.
How did you get to the Globe Theater that evening?
I took an Uber.
And where were, you don't have to tell us the exact location, but the general location of where you were coming from.
I was coming from 711 Olive Street.
Okay, so the exact location.
That was my office, so I remember the address.
So you Ubered from 711 Olive Street. That's just a few blocks away, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know about what time you arrived at the Globe Theater?
Must have been around 7:30, 7:30.
Did you meet Amie and your friend Sarah there?
Yes. Yes.
Who arrived first?
Amie was there first.
And then who arrived second?
I did.
And when did Sarah arrive?
Probably about 20 minutes after I got there.
Now, is Sarah also a friend of yours?
We had just met that night.
That was the first time you'd ever met Sarah?
Yes.
And is that from a friend of Amy's?
Yes, she was a friend of Amy's.
Was Amie responsible for kind of setting up the night?
She was.
Now, when you were at the Globe Theater, did you take any photographs while you were there?
We did.
Your Honor, at this time, the people are holding 3 photographs with a witness. May that be marked as People's 12, A, B, and C?
Yes.
Michelle, I'm showing you what's been marked as People's 12A. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes.
Is this a photograph that was taken of you while at the Globe Theater?
Yes.
Could you tell us who's who in the photograph?
Sure. From left to right, Amie, Tosh, Miss Tosh, she was a dancer there, so I don't know her full name. And then Sarah and myself.
So when you say Tosh was a dancer there, that's not one of the people that was out with you at the Globe Theater, is that correct?
No, she was one of the performers.
In the burlesque show?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about what you guys were wearing. Was there a uniform for the night?
There was. We were to wear all either pink or red.
And whose idea was that?
That was Amy's.
And you had all discussed that prior to this day?
We did. Well, on the day. Yeah.
Do you remember the accessories that Amie was wearing that evening?
I do.
And what accessories were those?
She had a leather jacket on with her. She also had rosary necklaces.
I'm zooming in on a photograph here of People's 12A, and I'm pointing to what appears to be a necklace, or 2 necklaces. Are those the necklaces that you're referring to Amie having worn that night?
Yes.
Now, did you take additional photos at the Globe Theater, aside from the one I'm showing you here?
We did, yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as People's 12B. Is this a photograph that was also taken there?
Yes.
And could you point out who's who in this photograph?
I'm to the right and Amy's to the left. Sorry.
You said you're to the right and Amy's to the left?
I'm sorry. I'm on the left and Amy's on the right.
You're to the left and Amy's to the right. If you need a moment, just let me know. We can pause.
Do you have tissues up there, madam?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
right behind the screen. Yeah, just reach behind the screen right there. Yeah, there you go. Right, your hands right there.
Oh,
Sorry, that's okay. There's not much room up there.
I'm going to show you one more photo, Michelle. People's 12C. Do you recognize that photo?
yes,
Is that another photo that was taken that evening?
yes.
And could you tell us who's in the photo?
Myself to the left and Amy to the right.
Now, how long do you recall was the burlesque show?
It finished around 9:30, so like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
Now, did you decide to go somewhere after the Globe Theater?
Yes,
So what time would you say you actually left?
between 9:45 and 10 p.m.
And where did you go?
We first went to my office at 711 Olive Street, and then we went to the Nomad Hotel, which was across the street.
What's the Nomad?
It is a hotel slash eatery. They have food, drinks,
Gotcha.
and it is a hotel.
Did all of you go there?
Yes, we did.
So that was Sarah, Amy, and yourself?
Yes.
Could you kind of tell us logistically how that took place?
Yeah, so Sarah and I had both Ubered there, so Amy drove us back.
What do you mean Amy drove you back?
We went in her car.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
And we drove to my office. And yeah.
So just to be clear, so that I'm not confused, Sarah drove both yourself and Sarah in her car back to your office located at 711 Olive Street.
Yes.
And that's located across the street from the Nomad?
Yes.
Where did Amy park?
In the down under garage of my building. I had parking there, so
Is that where you had also parked earlier in the evening?
yes, my car was there. Yeah.
And why did you decide to drive back with Amy and have her park there?
She'd taken her car, and it's safer. You know, my building is safe and secure parking.
Gotcha.
So, and we knew we wanted to go to the Nomad, and I said, well, my business is right there, so let's just go park. It's a gated parking, so.
What time would you say after leaving the Globe Theater did you arrive at the Nomad?
Probably around 10:30. Wasn't, yeah.
What did you guys do once you were there?
We talked. We had something to eat. Amy had tea.
And when you say you laugh when you say Amy had tea, why did you laugh?
Because she loves tea. I don't
Okay.
know.
And you said you and Sarah had some drinks. Is that right?
Yeah, not alcoholic, just, yeah, because we were ending the night, and so. Yeah.
About how long would you say you stayed at the Nomad with Amy and Sarah?
We left around midnight. Yeah.
And when you say
12,
we,
12.
did all three of you leave at the same time?
Yes, we did.
Where did you each go from there? Let's start with Sarah.
Sarah took an Uber to where her car was parked, and Amy and I walked back to my office.
Did you go straight home from there?
No.
What did you guys do once you and Amy walked back to your office?
We went up to my actual office. She wanted to see it, and I had just gotten a puppy, and she just wanted to see the puppy. And so we just went up there, and we were just talking for a moment. I had to gather my things. I didn't want her going to the garage by herself, and so we went back down together.
How much time would you say you spent in your office playing with your new puppy? And
Not much time, maybe 10 minutes, because we just both wanted to get home. It's late.
And you said that you had both walked down to the garage together?
Yes.
And we're talking about the parking garage?
Yes.
What happened once you got down to the parking garage?
We talked for a few minutes by our car, and then we both got in our cars and went to the freeway together, and I followed her on the freeway, and then, we went our separate ways.
And what time would you say that was when you finally, got into your cars and drove out of the parking garage?
Well, it doesn't take very long to get home. It must have been 12:30. It was a pretty, maybe 20 minutes or so. We went up and came down, and then we left.
Gotcha. And where did you go from your office?
I went to my house.
And how long, you said it takes you, did you say 20 minutes to get home?
Or so, yeah. I got home at 1 a.m.
Now, did you hear from Amie at any point after parting at the garage to arriving at your house?
Yes.
And how did you hear from her?
As soon as I was pulling into my garage at my home, she texted me and asked me to send her pictures.
Your Honor, at this time, the people are holding 2 pages of screenshots of text messages. May that be marked as people's 13A and 13B?
Yes.
And just preliminarily, I'm going to leave this exhibit up. I just want to let counsel know, just because the next series of questions will be involved with this exhibit, Your Honor.
We're our discussion had to do with photographs. So not so much text and so forth and or these. As long as you're asking on the issue of the witness, that's fine. You're within the court's order.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right.
So you said that you received a text message from Amie at what time?
It was 1:02.
Now I'm going to show you, let's see, 13A. Do you have a good view of that in the screen in front of you?
I do, yes.
Now, do you recognize this to be your phone based on these text messages?
Yes, it's my phone.
Showing you the initial text message here, send me the selfies we took. Is that a text message from you or?
That's from Amie.
That's from Amie.
Yes.
And do you see the timestamp right above there?
I do.
Okay. And what's the timestamp?
1:01 a.m.
And that is a text message you received from Amie?
Yes.
Now there's a second text message in blue saying okay.
Yes.
And with a timestamp of 1:02 a.m.
Yes.
Is that your response to Amie's text message?
Yes.
And you said that's what time you came home?
Yes, because I distinctly remember as soon as I pulled into my garage, I got the message. And I was in my car, and I responded before I even went into my house.
So upon seeing that text message, you immediately responded?
Yes.
Now, and these are the photographs that we see on the screen that I showed you earlier, is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to show you people's 13B. These are the other photographs that we talked about on direct examination in people's 12. Is that correct?
Yes.
There is a timestamp on the right side here of 1:07 a.m. Are those text messages that you had sent between the times of 1:02 and 1:07?
I sent them all at once. It looks like some of them just got delivered a little later.
Did you get a response from Amie after sending these messages?
No.
And when was the last time you ever heard from Amie?
When she texted me to send the photos.
So the text messages that we're viewing is the last communication you ever had with Amie prior to her death?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay. Counsel, you can. Are you going to use those photographs? Then?
I have no questions.
Okay. You have no questions? Okay, you can take those down. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down.
Thank you.
You're welcome. People.
The people called Maricela Mendoza.
All right. All right, ma'am, if you could face my clerk, please.
Please raise your right hand.
Can you put this on?
Yes. You solemnly state that the testimony you're about to give and the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Please state and spell both your first and last name.
Maricela Mendoza, Maricela Mendoza.
All right, counsel.
Thank you. Do you know Amie Harwick?
Yes, I do.
How do you know each other?
We've been friends for about 20 years. We were friends for about 20 years.
How did you guys meet?
We met many years ago through Coffin Case, which is a company we both modeled for back in the day.
Were you good friends?
Yes, we were.
Did you maintain regular contact with each other over this period of about 20 years?
Yes, we did.
Would you say you kept in touch often?
Yes, we did.
And could you tell me what often means?
Often was every other day. We'd talk, or we'd go have waffles, or we'd go eat, or we'd go have coffee, or there was only one period where I distanced myself, and that's when I lost my boyfriend who passed away. So, but that was just a grieving process, and then we picked up again after I was ready.
So you kept in touch fairly often?
Yes.
In the time that you've known her for, I think you said 20 years, had you ever seen her smoke any tobacco products?
Absolutely not.
Ingest any tobacco products?
Absolutely not.
Ingest any form of nicotine whatsoever?
Absolutely not.
Now, do you know someone by the name of Gareth Pursehouse?
Yes, I do.
Do you see him in court today?
Yes, I do.
Could you please identify him by telling us where he's seated and what he's wearing?
I'm assuming that is him at the very far right. Looks a little different than I remember, but I think that's him on the far right over there.
What's he wearing?
He's wearing a blazer with a blue collar shirt.
All right, identify the defendant.
How do you know the defendant?
We met through Amy.
Could you tell me about when you first met the defendant?
Objection relevance.
Sustain.
I think, Your Honor, we'll go to, it's foundational.
All right, I'll give you some leeway.
Sure.
Back to that.
When did you first meet the defendant?
I'm not too certain if it was around 2009 or 2010.
And was the defendant and Amy dating at the time that you met him?
Objection relevance.
Hold on.
Yes.
And seeing that they were dating, did you spend time with the both of them?
Yes, I did.
At the time that you were hanging out with Amy and the defendant at the same time, did you know what he did for a living?
Objection relevance.
Sustain.
I believe it's foundational as well.
Well,
Let's move on.
do it.
Now, when you were hanging out with both the defendant and Amy, were you aware of how long they dated?
Objection relevance.
Good answer, you know.
I'm not sure how long they were dating. I know that they had been off and on for a while. I tried to not be around them as much.
Objection non-responsive.
Okay, the answer will stand. Let's ask our next question, if you would, please.
Do you know if they were ever living together?
Yes, they were.
In fact, had you ever been to their shared residence while they were dating?
Yes, many times.
Objection relevance. That's to this on the question.
The answer will stand that they were living together and that she had been there. Okay.
Were you pretty familiar with their relationship?
Objection relevance.
All right, sustain.
Without getting into the details, would you describe their relationship as volatile?
Objection.
Let's approach it, if you would.
More of the trial of the Hollywood sex therapist killer is on the way. Press subscribe now so you don't miss a moment of this riveting courtroom drama as we seek justice for Dr. Amie Harwick.